나무이라붓수 나무나붓수 나무나붓수.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our fall O-Higan service. It's a special service that we hold usually around the equinox, and I think today is the first day of fall, from what I understand. And so today we have a special guest minister from San Mateo, Reverend Adams. And Reverend Adams, there are also people here in the Sangha visiting that are from San Mateo. So we also have new faces, so welcome everybody for coming here today. I'd like to thank right away Sensei, the Kathy Kumagai for our organist, the flowers arranged by Kyoko Okura Gibbs, and Alan Goto and Kathy Kumagai, who are currently streaming this into everybody's homes. So thank you very much. And our first thing on our program is the announcement of service by Sensei Gibbs.
Yeah, thank you, Jeannie. Shishin kei Namo shochu hu Shishin kei Namo shochu hu Shishin kei Namo shochu so. Today, on this occasion of the Fall O-Higan service, the members of the Pasadena Buddhist Temple, our family and our friends reverently reaffirm our reliance upon the three treasures of the truth. We rely upon the Buddha, we rely upon the Dharma, we rely upon the Sangha. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Nabutsu, Namo Nabutsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Nabutsu, Namo Nabutsu. Now, so I think Jeannie told you we're going to move on to Sanbutsuge, and if you're looking at the service book, it's 33 from the Romanized version, page 33 for the Romanized version, or page 37 for the original Japanese text. Busatsu Daimuryo Jukyo Sanbutsuge Kogengigi Ijin Mugoku Myode Enmyo Muyo Tosya Ichigatmani Tuko Enyo Kaishtonpe Yunyaku Junoku Myolai Yogen Shose Murin Shongaku Daion Koru Jippo Kaimon Tryojin Sammai Chie Itoku Muryo Shusho Keu Juntai Zennen Shobuten Hokai Ujin Jinno Kungong えたい無名欲ぬて尊用無人の死死人徳無量空君広大知恵人妙光明意祖春道大戦願が差仏大正法岡戸生寺未不下脱不定上位海人精進妙で三昧知恵以上五帝特仏不行志願一切空空一切大安慶死有仏百千億万無量大小修行王者供養一切使徒小仏不尿愚道賢小不逆非尿語者小仏世界無不影無臭節道法名師匠天使小国尿税精進異人難量量型仏国土第一欧州奇妙道場超絶国尿内音二無闘争加藤愛民道達一切実法来生春熱少女伊藤が国経楽安穏公仏神妙税が神書発願の日力小小欲実法生存知恵無下同僚子孫知が信行軽量心死食毒中家業精進人寿は不敬ナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブ願に宿毒平等性一切どんもない心恩量ナマンダブルマンダナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブルマンダナモミラ仏ナモナ仏ナモミラ仏ナモナ仏
Thank you. Next, we'll have Oshoko by representatives. If we can have a representative of the Dharma School and Sangha teams. Thank you, Leighton. Junior YBA. Kala. Buddhist Women's Association. Pasadena Buddhist Temple. Thank you, Lori. Next, if you'll join us in, stand and join singing Nembutsu, it's on page 137. If you went to the Tekno Hoyo last week, there was a very stylized Nembutsu along with the sutra. We were all bobbing to the songs last week. But we're going to sing Nembutsu the way it's supposed to be sang today, okay? So page 137, the top part. Thank you. If you'll please be seated. Next, we'll have Reverend Gibbs introduce our guest speaker, Reverend Adams.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Jeannie. Yeah, thanks to all of you for being here this morning. It's my honor to introduce our guest minister, Reverend Henry Torrio Adams. Adams Sensei grew up in Buffalo, Minnesota. He discovered his interest in Buddhism during a one-year high school exchange program in Chennai, India. As an undergraduate student at St. Olaf College, he began to study Buddhist scriptures and first considered pursuing the path in Buddhist ministry. After receiving a Master of Arts degree in Buddhist Studies from the University of Michigan, he moved on to Miyazaki, Japan, where he worked for the Miyazaki prefectural government. In the year 2007, Reverend Adams moved to Kyoto, Japan, to pursue his ministerial studies at Chuo Bukkyo Gakuen Buddhist Seminary. Upon graduating from the seminary, he began serving as a minister in the Buddhist Churches of America in 2010. Reverend Adams has been serving in his current capacity as the resident minister of the San Mateo Buddhist Temple since 2013. Prior to coming to San Mateo, he served the Oxnard Buddhist Temple, the Buddhist Church of Santa Barbara, the San Luis Obispo Buddhist Temple, and the Guadalupe Buddhist Church. Adams Sensei also served as the supervising minister for the Buddhist Church of San Francisco from September of 2020 until May of 2023. From September of 2018 through May of 2019, he served as chaplain intern at the University of California, San Francisco Medical Center. Adams Sensei is married to Shoko, and they have three sons, Ryoma, age 13, who was born in Oxnard, Shoma, age 10, and Tokuma, age 5, who were both born in San Mateo County. In recent years, he is enjoying his lifelong love of bicycling with his wife and sons, and he spends a lot of his free time fixing bicycles. So we will not call upon him for his expertise in bicycles this morning, but for his expertise in the Buddha Dharma, and I will then, without further ado, introduce our guest speaker today, our guest minister, Reverend Henry Adams.
Good morning, everyone. It's wonderful to be back in the Southern District where I started out my ministry. It's just, when I was flying into Burbank yesterday, and I brought back so many memories of all the times when I was living in Oxnard. I would always fly out of Burbank to go up to Oakland for things at the Jodo Shinshu Center. And yesterday I kind of did the reverse. And in that moment, kind of flying back, there's a little bit of a feeling reminding me of coming home. So it's wonderful to be back here with all of you as we reflect on this O-Higan occasion, reflecting on the direction of our lives here in the Buddha Dharma. I'm truly grateful to you for inviting me to be part of this special service today. I wanted to begin by sharing a message for our Dharma school families. So this is a time of O-Higan. It's a time when we think about the direction of our lives. O-Higan is a time when the sun sets directly in the west. It's a time when there's a nice balance of day and night, perfectly balanced in our cycles of light and darkness. It's also a time when we're starting to see different animals moving around. We see birds migrating. We see different insects. All kinds of changes are occurring at this time. So I want to think about, as we're thinking about this time of change, this time of reflection, this time of direction, I want to start by asking a question about animals. Okay? So I want to ask about, talk a little bit about biomass. Biomass is if you added up all of the animals of a certain species, you would get a certain weight. So think about if we added up all the people in the Hondo, if we all got on one giant scale and we weighed ourselves, what do you think we weigh? Maybe 500 pounds? Maybe a little more, maybe, right? So if you add up all of the weight, which animal do you think is the heaviest of all the animals? If you add them all up, which one do you think? What is the most? What'd you say, cows?
I said cockroaches.
Cockroaches, yeah. You're close. I think it's this, the thing I read, it said ants. The ants. So small, but there's so many of them. I think that even these days we're having a problem of the ant invasion in our house that happens every year in the fall. Sometimes I feel like the biomass of ants in our house is greater than the biomass of people. We're losing out. Sometimes I feel like it. But we've been doing a good job. We're getting lots of guidance from our temple leaders on how to control the ant population in our house. So, we think about there's all of these, in our house today, we've got all these different ants kind of scurrying around. And in our house, all of the people have a name, right? There's Henry, my wife is Shoko, our sons, as Reverend Gibbs kindly introduced, Ryoma, Shoma, Tokuma. But all of the ants don't have names. We don't name the ants. We say, oh, there's Fred, there's Michael. Oh, look, Fred came back. He must really like honey, right? So we don't name the ants. But as humans, we love to categorize and label things. It's something that we love to do as people. Right? Even things that we can't see, we can still categorize. Things like air. Think about air, right? How could you measure air? Right? If you blow air into a balloon, then you have a certain amount. You could even put it on a scale and weigh it, see how much it weighs. You have the volume, you have how much it weighs. And so air is kind of out there. It's freely available, right? Normally we wouldn't say, oh, hey, stop breathing my air. That's my air, right? You go over there. Your air is over there, right? We don't normally think that way. But if you have a balloon, all of a sudden, it's pretty clear who that air belongs to, at my house at least. After a birthday party, come home with 3 balloons, and it's like, no, that's my balloon. You get your own balloon, No, that's mine. Your balloon's over there. And I'm thinking, you're 13 years old. Let the 5-year-old have the balloon, right? But, they have this possession, this thing that we think about. We all do this, right? It's freely available. It's everywhere. You can't measure air if it's just out. But we put it inside something. Then we try to measure it. Then we make it ours, right? And so our lives are like this too, right? Our lives, in some ways, are like a balloon, right? If you think about a balloon, when you first get it, it's kind of small, and then it gets bigger and bigger. And as it gets bigger, when you first get the balloon, it's nice and shiny, and it gets bigger, and it gets shinier and more firm, right? Think about human life, right? We start out small, we get bigger, we get shinier, right? We get, maybe more firm, we get some muscles and so forth. And then just like a balloon, if you think about it, have you ever had a balloon that somebody like really keeps, like, that's my balloon? Sometimes we have my balloon, starts out this big, but then it's still, it's smaller, right? Because the air gradually seeks out. It gets smaller, it gets a little bit wrinkly, right? This happens to humans too, right? As we get older, we're not so firm and shiny as we were. Maybe we get a little bit more wrinkly. Balloons don't lose their hair, but humans do, like me, right? And so, balloons, they change in this way too, right? Think about, myself. I had this experience on a recent trip to Japan. I was staying near the Honganji, our head temple. I went last year for the important service. I was staying near Honganji, where I used to live when I was living in Kyoto. And I was thinking, I'm right near Honganji. I want to go down to Kyoto Station to do a little shopping. I've got about an hour. Now, back when I was living there in my early 30s, I could easily walk there 15 minutes, have half an hour for shopping, walk back 15 minutes. Perfect. All right, I've got an hour. I'm going to go, right? So I started walking. I don't remember it being this far. I don't remember getting so winded when I was walking there. I got there, and it had taken me half an hour. So I had to turn around and just walk back, right? Thought, oh, my balloon, the air is gradually seeping out. Sometimes the air kind of gradually seeps out, and sometimes the air suddenly seeps out. Even, think about my kids. A lot of times they get that new shiny balloon they start playing with. They play a little too rough, and it pops, right? This can happen with human life too. It's not always, we hope that the balloon gets bigger and then it gets smaller and have a nice long period of maybe, 80, 90 years, human life. Some people even live to 100. That's not always the case, right? That's not always the case. And so at whatever point that air goes out of the balloon, right, where does it go? It doesn't disappear. Goes back. It becomes one with that immeasurable air. Human life is the same way. Right? When this form, this human body, disappears, it's not that life is gone and disappeared, but rather it returns to, it becomes one with immeasurable life. And this is when we say Namo Amida Butsu, we're saying, I take refuge in the awakened one, the Buddha, of immeasurable life. I'm directing my mind to that truth that we are part of this immeasurable life. We're guided and sustained by it. And so we have live in this life of constant change, but the direction of our lives is clear for all of us, returning to immeasurable life. It's not that the life comes to an end, but it just takes on a complete freedom, liberation from the form which we are accustomed to. So as we think about our lives being like this balloon, we cherish, we treasure this human life that we've received. And we recognize that our lives are directed to, for all of us, directed to this world of immeasurable life. So as you live your life moment to moment, I encourage you to both cherish this time that we have together, but also to take comfort and peace in the truth that we are all directed to this immeasurable life. We're surrounded by it, we're sustained by it, it is part of us. And this can really help us to understand how to live moment to moment, recognizing the truth that we are together on this journey in life. That we may have different shapes, or balloons may be different colors, some are red, some are blue, some are yellow, but we have this common aspect, this common essential life that we share. And so we journey together, helping one another out, guiding and supporting each other as we are guided and supported by the Buddha, Amida Buddha. So these are the reflections that I share for the Dharma School students. If any wish, and I think this is the time to kind of let the Dharma School students move on to their classrooms, if that's the occasion.
Yeah, thank you, Sensei. Yes, let's take like a 30-second break.
30-second break, okay.
Yeah, so the Dharma School students will repair to the
stay.
The rest should stay here with us if you're old enough to follow this one. It's for Oregon. Okay. Okay, we are prepared to hear the rest of your message.
Okay, very good. Very good. The balloons are staying in here. That's right. Great. So that's wonderful. So as we transition then into the next part of the Dharma message, I wanted to share some words, the wisdom that Shinran Shonin offers us for our lives today. Invite you to join me in Gassho. People who aspire for the land of happiness dwell in the stage of the truly settled. None in that land are falsely settled or unsettled. Therefore, the Buddhas offer Amida their praise. Namam Bhavats, Namam Bhavats, Namam Bhavats, Namam Bhavats, Namam Bhavats, Namam Bhavats. So I want to continue on with this theme of journeying and traveling. Shinran Shonin, in this verse that I read from the Pure Land hymns, the Jodo Wasan, he talks about how if we have the aspiration to dwell in the land of happiness, which is that world of immeasurable life, that we're truly settled. So we can think of our direction in life is truly settled. And as we journey through life, it's often our fellow travelers that really help to affirm and guide us, and to help us to confirm the direction in which we live, the direction of our lives. For me, I find that some of my most precious companions on this journey in life are my fellow ministers, Reverend Gibbs and the other ministers here in the Southern District, as well as the ministers of the Bay District, where I currently serve as the resident minister. Last year, on that same trip to Japan, I had an opportunity to go out and to travel with a group of members from our temple districts, local temples, as well as with Reverend Takashi Miyaji. Reverend Miyaji is a minister at the Southern Alameda County Buddhist Church, recently also transitioned to a new role as Dean of the Institute of Buddhist Studies. But so Miyaji Sensei and I were kind of like a team leading this tour. We were leading this tour, and we were supporting one another. We would take turns explaining things. And one thing I noticed about Reverend Miyaji is that he eats everything on his plate. He's a very he doesn't leave anything. He doesn't waste any food. And I think that's really, really remarkable, because I have some preferences. I have some likes and dislikes. And I like Japanese food. I love Japanese food. But there's some things that I kind of, maybe I might leave that on my plate. But when I was traveling with Miyaji Sensei, I noticed that he would waste nothing. No motai nai. And I thought, this is the way. He's setting a good example for our members. Try new things. Don't have likes and dislikes. So I'm going to endeavor to do as he's doing. And there's I'm honest, a little bit of competitiveness too, right? Like, if he's gonna eat it all, I'm not gonna be the minister who's picky. So I was eating all kinds of things and a lot of times with the fancier the Japanese food, the more hard it is to tell what it actually is, right? And so I would tend to just, if I wasn't sure about the taste, I would just kind of put it in my mouth and then just swallow it and wash it down with some tea or something. But I was eating my food, and then at one point, one of the members said, "Sensei, I can't tell what any of this is. Can you explain it?" And he seems to be like an expert in Japanese cuisine, because he knew what everything was. He got up and he's saying, "Oh God, this one's pork, this one's fish, this one's seaweed, this one's fish guts." And I was like, "Fish guts?" And I looked, and that was the one I had. I set it down. Right? It was the limit of my ability to try and to enjoy all of these things. But as I thought about that, I thought about how our lives can be limited by our likes and dislikes, our preferences. That if we have this idea of, I will accept this, I won't accept that, that also impacts our ways of experiencing so many things, so many encounters, relationships, the circumstances of our life. whether or not we can accept it in our hearts will determine whether or not we're able to have peace of mind, whether or not we're able to be clear about our direction, or will we lose our way. This is, I think, particularly true if we think about the difficulties of losing a loved one. That experience of a loved one crossing over to the other shore. This O-Higan time is also a time when we think about the journey of our lives to the other shore. We reflect upon those who have already crossed over to the other shore, those who have departed from this world. There's one of my favorite stories from our Dharma tradition is about a man named Mita Genshichi. Now, Genshichi lost his father when he was just 19 years old. He was a young man, his father passed away, and his father had really been kind of the guide stone, the direction of his life at that point. So when his father was no longer in this world, suddenly he felt that he was adrift in life. And they had the Buddhist services, as is customary, and Genshichi realized through those services that it's the teaching of the Buddha that will be his guide. He heard about this world of immeasurable life into which his father was born, and he began to wonder, what is this? And how can I come to this settled mind that is described in these teachings? And so he set out and he vowed, I'm going out on a journey, and I will not return home until I discover the truth of this Pure Land teaching, until I discover the truth of what it is to have a life directed toward immeasurable life. And so he began to go from place to place, and he started by going to the temples, and he would ask, who is someone that I can talk to who will be able to educate me, who I can get some understanding of this truth of Amida Buddha, the world of awakening. And as he traveled from temple to temple, he would hear stories of priests, but there was one name that kept coming up. It was a woman by the name of Oyuki. He said he had heard of this woman named Oyuki, and he said she is known to be a person with the deepest understanding of the Dharma. And so he set out asking, traveling from village to village, hearing about where she lived, kind of gradually finding his way, getting closer and closer to where Oyuki was, seeking this teacher in the Dharma. And when he finally arrived and he found her, he knocked on the door, and she opened the door, and she was an everyday person. She was busy preparing a meal. And she said, well, why don't you come in? Why don't you come in? She had, the irori, the hearth was warmed up, and, she was preparing some things, and he noticed she was cracking acorns. It seemed kind of strange, but she was cracking acorns, and she said, okay, I'm working on this project here, but why don't you come in, and I'd like to hear more about you. She, prepared some simple tea for him, and he began to pour his heart out, telling her all about his loss of his father, all about his goal to seek the truth of the Buddha's teachings, to attain this peace of mind through the Buddha's wisdom, all about his ideas of Buddhism and what was right and what he thought should be the correct teaching. And the whole time Oyuki was listening to him, cracking acorns. She's listening very attentively. And she said, oh, okay, I'm glad that you have all these questions. You've come on a perfect day, because later this evening we're going to have a Dharma gathering. Some friends are going to come over. We're going to be talking about the Buddha's teachings. A wonderful chance for you to ask your questions and hear what others have to think. But beforehand, why don't you go and take a little rest? It's been a long journey, and I'll call you when dinner's ready. And so she went back to cracking acorns, and she had created she had a pot. She was warming. She could hear the sounds of cooking, and finally, she called him up. Genshichi, come on out. Let's have some dinner. He came out, and he looked in the bowl, and in the bowl were acorns, boiled acorns. And he looked in this bowl, and he said, "Oh, are these acorns?" She said, yeah, I'm sorry, this is what I have. This is what we have to eat, these acorns. He said, oh, but, I grew up being told you don't eat acorns. The acorns are inedible, right? She said, well, no, I've boiled them. And so, that makes them, okay to eat. And he said, goodbye. Oh, so bitter, so bitter. I'm sorry, I can't eat this. And at that point, she offered the Dharma teaching. She said, you've come here seeking the path to truth. If you want to truly, truly be settled on the path to awakening, you need to let go of your likes and dislikes. You need to be able to accept the circumstances as they present themselves. You need to be able to take in and receive with gratitude that which is presented in your life. And so this is a story not just about not being a picky eater, but it's a story about letting go of our ideas of how things should be, being open to new things. And acorn soup, probably for Genchichi, was never going to be delicious. It's never going to taste good. Never going to taste good. The experience of, for example, losing a loved one, losing a job, a relationship coming apart. These things will never be comfortable. They'll never be pleasant. But these are the circumstances of our lives. And so if we can cherish this opportunity, this precious opportunity of human life, then we can see that free from our likes and dislikes, each moment of our lives can be appreciated for its preciousness, just as it is. Because this is the path to true peace of mind, to realizing the heart of true immeasurable life. Measurable life is not, it's just, I want this much. I want this much of my life. I want the good days. I don't want the bad days. We're going to have good days and bad days. So how can we live in a way that's settled with peace of mind on each and every day of our life? This is the truth that we receive when we direct our minds and our hearts to the wisdom and compassion of Amida Buddha. We receive that insight into our heart, and then Shinran Chonin says, we dwell in the stage of the truly settled. That doesn't mean there aren't going to be hard times or difficult times, but in the midst of all of those challenges, our direction will always be clear in our lives. If we think about this temple, we have at the center of the shrine the statue of Amida Buddha. We have the statue of Amida Buddha standing like this. Right? This right hand represents wisdom. Whatever problem is, whatever problems we face, the Buddha's teachings will give us the clarity to deal with it. The teachings won't necessarily say, this is what you should do. This is how you should resolve your problems with credit card debt, whatever the challenge may be. But it will help you to see the situation for what it is. Help you to see your own life for what it is. Be patient, be kind, care for others. Right? This left hand, this is the gesture of fulfilling vows. It represents the Buddha's compassion. Right? We'll never outgrow the Dharma. The Dharma will be with us at all ages, at all stages of our life. The Dharma will never go obsolete. It is as true today as it was 2,500 years ago when Shakyamuni Buddha was present in this world, sharing the truth of Amida Buddha's wisdom and compassion. So we see Amida Buddha, right? We can see, okay. Right? We'll have the Buddha's teachings to guide us, to show us the light of wisdom, and we'll be supported. It's like the Buddha's sort of reaching down to pick us up when we're feeling down or depressed. The wisdom and compassion of the Buddha with us. And the Buddha, if you look from the side, the Buddha leans forward slightly, right? So we don't have to chase after the Buddha, but we find the Buddha's like someone who cares for us, always coming in our direction. We just turn toward the Buddha in our minds, and we find that the Buddha is there, guiding, coming forward, coming toward us. So this direction of our lives, the teacher Tanluan talks about it as being like a tree in the forest that leans in the direction of awakening. So moment to moment, if we lean in the direction of the awakening, if our minds turn toward the Buddha, whatever comes up, Tanlan says it's like a knife wind that comes and cuts at us. We can't think of anything, but if we're just going to fall, we will fall in that direction of the Buddha's awakening. So if we think about this way of living, the O-Higan is our time to settle our minds to affirm that direction in which we lean our hearts, finding that the Buddha too leaning toward us. We're leaning together, right, in this way. I want to conclude by sharing an experience of someone that I've known personally who I feel had this settled mind, free from likes and dislikes, leaning moment to moment in the direction of Amida Buddha as the Buddha leaned toward her. She was one of the temple members at the Oxnard Buddhist temple. She's still a member there. And when I was there, she was busy as a grandparent taking care of her grandson. And every Thursday, she would be her babysitting day. And he was at the time about 2 years old. So she would always come to the temple on Thursday to check in and to check the BWA mail and so forth. And she would stop by my office and say hi. And I remember her grandson would always be like holding onto her leg, kind of peeking out from one side, very shy, but always together with her. Clearly, that was how he felt secure and safe, being with Grandma. Now, whatever she was doing on Thursdays, she would always bring him along. And on one occasion, one of the first funerals that I had the honor of conducting happened to be held on a Thursday. And I was sort of wondering, I wonder if I'll see her there. I wonder if she'll be there. And as a minister, I've been part of many conversations with families. And from time to time, families have a concern. If it's an open casket service, should we have the children come or not? Because there's a sense of, well, if they see, this person, this dead body, how will they react? Will they be traumatized for the rest of their life? And so there's a tendency of, well, maybe we won't have the children come, or a debate about whether or not to do it. And a lot of that, I think, is the reflection of our own fears and anxieties around death. That gets projected onto our children. Our children learn from our reactions. If we're terrified, then they learn to be terrified. They learn to be afraid. And so, when this service started, this was the furthest thing from my mind. I was really focused on, okay, let me not mess up, hold my service book, looking very closely, at the service book, chanting, I got to do all the ritual correctly. And as I was conducting this service, I noticed that this was at a mortuary. So I was down on the floor, sitting next to the casket. And as the family and different friends came forward, I noticed that there was a very small person. There was a child who was there. And I looked up, and it was this temple member there. She had brought her grandson along, because wherever she went on Thursday, he came along. So he came along to the funeral. And not only did she bring him along, but she brought him up to offer incense. And then they came around the incense burner to the casket, and she physically lifted him up off the ground. And they leaned over into the casket to get a good, clear look. Now, as a child, as a human being, we know there's a sort of instinctive knowledge. When you see a person who has died, you know that's, there's a kind of, I think, a basic sort of human reaction to that. How are we going to deal with that? And in that moment, which I believe was this child's first encounter with this reality of death, to encounter that in the embrace of his loving grandmother. And this is something that's going to be terrifying and frightening and sad on a sort of basic human level. And she was sad too. She was crying. This was her friend who had passed away. And yet I could see, her mouth moving. And I know that the words that were coming were Namam Dabuts, Namam Dabuts, Namam Dabuts. And so in that moment, this child, the encountering this terrifying, bitter, uncomfortable reality of death, at the same time, in the most comfortable, safest embrace of his grandmother, hearing these words, Namo Amida Butsu, hearing the voice of the Buddha calling from that direction in the West, that we have a teaching that will help us to understand, to have clarity in these moments, that will guide and support us, lifting us up when we're feeling sad and lonely. And so to me, this is the way of living with the mind directed to the West, leaning to the world of Amida Buddha. So for me, as a person living in the Nembutsu, this O-Higan is a season to direct my mind to the West, to the world of Amida Buddha, to affirm the truth that in the midst of this daily life, when things often don't go as I wish they would, that I have a place where I can direct my mind. This temple is a place where we come and we sit together. We have this Sangha experience of all together directing our minds toward Amida Buddha. So I'm grateful to you for this opportunity to travel here and to be here with you together and to direct our minds together to the world of Amida Buddha's immeasurable life on this occasion of O-Higan. So we'll conclude at this time. Let us once again hear these words of Shinran Shoni. Please join me in Gassho. People who aspire for the land of happiness dwell in the stage of the truly settled. None in that land are falsely settled or unsettled. Therefore, the Buddhas offer Amida their praise. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo.
Thank you, Adam Sensei, for this wonderful message and a reminder for us to study and to be grateful and to remember that not everything goes our way. So at this time, I just would like to remind everybody we're going to have otoki served in the classroom. If you can stay, please stay and visit with Reverend Adams and Reverend Gibbs and everybody else. Again, I'd like to thank Kathy for playing the organ, Alan and Kathy for both getting us in inner space. And I think, are there any announcements? Well, then I'd like to thank everybody for coming today. And if you did not offer incense at the beginning of the service and you'd like to offer incense now, the incense burners are ready for you. Okay, so thank you very much for coming, and hopefully we'll see you in the classroom.
Thank you very much, Jeannie. And I will just let you know we have classes as usual this week. So Tai Chi, 1 o'clock, Tuesday and Thursday in the gymnasium. Tuesday, 11 o'clock for an informal Buddhist discussion, usually on the porch here. 6 p.m. for meditation Tuesday, 7 p.m. for a more formal study, but still pretty informal study of Buddhist teaching. So hope to see you Tuesday or Thursday, and we'll be back here next Sunday. It'll just be me next Sunday, but we will be here Sunday at 10 a.m. Hope to see you again next week. As Jeannie said, please join us for refreshments next door. The charcoal's still fresh in the burner, so if you haven't offered incense prior to service, you certainly are welcome to do so now. Thank you. Namo.
Thank you.